Hey everybody, I'm John Ramdeen, joined by Robin Black, and we are still talking about what transpired at the O2 Arena this past Saturday. Anderson Silva, the former UFC middleweight champion, losing to Michael Bisping by unanimous decision. Anderson Silva's camp, Anderson Silva apparently, after losing to Michael Bisping, said there's corruption in England like there is in Brazil.
So let's take it to Brazil then.
So let's take it to Brazil. Ed Suarez, Anderson Silva's manager, saying it would only make sense to have a rematch because everybody did feel that the fight was that close. Why not try to set up 3 fights, especially if they can get the second fight in Brazil? If Anderson Silva wins, in a perfect world, they have the 3rd fight in Las Vegas.
Yeah, hey, sure. You know, I'd love to see it again. That 3rd round was crazy. Anderson Silva finished him, essentially. Herb Dean said, where are you going? All you had to do was hit him 2 more times and I was going to call it. Went on. The Bisping winning round 4, as you watch back in that fight, yes, Bisping having a great round 1 and 2, Anderson Silva being destructive in 3 and 5. But round 4 is the story of that fight. The beauty and the sadness, they go together. For Bisping, this is the greatest win ever. This is a culmination of everything he's chased, everything he's dreamed of as a young man fighting. He just beat Anderson Silva. But for Anderson Silva, he's a 40-year-old former champion who just loves it so much still loves going in there and freely expressing himself, but you're not going to win all of them. Do you get a do-over? He's Anderson Silva. Maybe he deserves it, but this game moves so quickly. They're already talking about Nick Diaz fighting Michael Bisping, and that's how the game moves.
And we'll get to Nick Diaz in a second, because it's something you brought up the other day, that Anderson Silva isn't asking the commission to take a look at what happened because he believes and his team believes that they should have won this fight. You just accept the fact, okay, I lost. This is the way the sport of mixed martial arts plays out. Doesn't mean I can't get another fight. Let's go on to the next thing. And that's what the sport essentially, it's one of the roots, is that, okay, let's just move on. Let's tackle the next big thing. And for Anderson Silva and Michael Bisping, is that the upper echelon? Is that the top of the 185-pound division? I'm sure if you ask Michael Bisping, I don't know how self-aware he is to realize that there's a different level between the middle of the pack, the lower end of the 185-pound pack, and the top 5 of the division. Why not just have all these legends, guys that have proven themselves many times, give them the most competitive and the biggest fights possible?
But Mr. Ramdeen, I just beat Anderson
I don't think
Silva.
he'd be that polite at all.
No, he might not be. We love Michael Bisping here. Hey, man, he's the guy in that pack who has a shot at it. Nick Diaz, we all love watching him fight. On any given night, he can beat anybody in the world, but he's coming off a loss to Anderson Silva, lost to GSP. He's got a couple of them, but that doesn't always matter. We love Nick Diaz.
Yeah.
We, the audience, love Nick Diaz. And if he ends up in a title fight, 1 fight down the road, a few people freak out, but ultimately these are the best athletes in the world. We want to see these guys fight.
And that's one other thing. If you look back at history, there are many supporters of combat sports that start watching and it's like, I'm confused. I've been told because of boxing, you lose 1 or 2 or 3 fights, you are terrible. That is not the way it is in mixed martial arts. It's what happens inside of the cage or ring. You see the beauty of the art because there are so many disciplines involved in mixed martial arts and there's so many ways to win. I think that's one of the special things about the sport. And because of that, you can think about Nick Diaz facing off against Luke Rockhold, or a matchup with Chris Weidman down the road, or Jacare, or Michael Bisping, again, battling some of those guys in the top 5 of the division. Should they be fighting for a title? Well, again, Michael Bisping, he has proven that he deserves that throughout his career, but it's a difficult thing to give him a title shot considering he lost to the man at the top of the mountain right now.
Yeah, and hey, it's one thing to, have that very open idea and be super positive, and you guys can all go for it, and we love these fighters, and we do, and let them fight. That's all fine and good, and that's all true. Those are true thoughts and feelings, emotions that a lot of us have about fighting. But those guys at the top are terrifying right now. At 185 pounds, Weidman, Rockhold, Jacare, Yoel Romero, those guys are another class. So let them fight it out. Let's figure out who the best of that lot is. And then to come up and meet that best of that lot, you'll have to beat the guys that they beat. It's a scary place. 185 pounds right now to fight, terrifying.
Especially because you mentioned the kind of the middle of the pack as well. We've seen in that fight with Talis Litis, he looked very good against Michael Bisping. But then Gegard Mousasi might be that next step up. You put Nick Diaz into the mix there, and you throw in some of the other fighters at 185 pounds that a lot of people aren't thinking about. Again, from the middle of the pack to the top of the pack, that is a very difficult journey for anybody.
Yeah, and you're forgetting about probably the next big 185-pounder, Conor McGregor.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
or 205-pounder, or, heavyweight. Who the hell knows with this guy? Wasn't he just the featherweight champion of the world? Frankie Edgar is just saying the dude has to leave it. You're looking at him, his tricep is the size of my
Massive.
head. And listen, people, you look at this, and people are like, he's got to be on steroids. It isn't steroids. That is how big this man was at featherweight. He, through mental strength and drive and research and study and figuring out what you have to do and how you have to do it, that is the size of Conor McGregor.
Yeah. Essentially, it's all just work for him.
Yeah, he would just work through cardiovascular, through deprivation of carbohydrates, through dehydration. He would get himself down to 145, and we'd see him the day before the weigh-ins. He was still a 160-pound man. Then dehydrate another 15. Then put that back on your 160. Put the carbs back in your 170. He's a big dude. But will he go back down and do all that work again to go down and defend that featherweight belt? Not if he looks good on Saturday night, he won't, because he's got to feel good walking around eating steaks and eating carbohydrates.
And I can understand Frankie Edgar, why he would say that Conor McGregor needs to leave the division, because we're already talking about him winning a title at 155 pounds. Well, what happens if he takes out Nathan Diaz in spectacular form? The conversation starts about him facing Robbie Lawler or whoever the 170-pound champion is at the time. So how in the world is he going to be able to defend the 45-pound championship, the 70-pound championship, and then when Rafael dos Anjos is ready, that 155-pound championship? I understand why Frankie Edgar would say, you know what, let this guy move out of this division, let me get my title shot, I deserve to be a champion. And I agree. I think Frankie should 100% be fighting for the 145-pound championship. However, Frankie, if you want to make the most money you've probably ever made in mixed martial arts, you want Conor McGregor to be the guy standing across the cage from you.
Yeah, I mean, this is all there's so many millions of moving parts, which is why these conversations can literally go on forever. And we don't have them that often because there's plenty of places you can find those. As people sit around and go, well, this guy deserves this, and he beat that guy, and why? All of that is nonsense. What happens is what will get the most people excited. Every conversation you hear about this guy deserves this, and I thought he beat that guy, and is that fair? Irrelevant. The fights are made according to the fights that are going to bring people in and sell pay-per-views. So we all better get used to that. But Frankie Edgar, I think the money for him, go fight Dominic Cruz at 135 pounds. I think that's the money.
Cool.
Dominic Cruz is bigger than Frankie Edgar anyways. But
would it sell on pay-per-view if Frankie Edgar agrees, if he listens to his coaches and they all say that he should be going down to 135 pounds, if they say, you know what, we're going to get you in shape, we're going to allow you to make your bantamweight debut, work with us. He says yes. They sign the fight, Dominic Cruz, Frankie Edgar. Does that do big business, or do they put that on Fox, put that on free TV?
I think it does, based on the fact that Dominic Cruz has kind of turned himself into a star through how he talks and how he thinks and how he fights. And we're interested in Dominic Cruz. I think that is a big one. But you look at the size difference. You got Conor McGregor, who's enormous. Then you got Frankie Edgar. And then Dominic Cruz, bigger than Frankie Edgar. So weight divisions are a very interesting thing. But back to the original point. If you're Conor McGregor, can you go and make this inhuman weight cut? Can you, by studying and working and sacrificing and doing everything other men won't do to get that small, can you do it? Yeah, he can do it.
Is it healthy?
Should you
Is he
do
healthy?
it? Yeah, should you do it? And the answer to that is not for very long. It's not good on your kidneys. It's not good on your internal organs. It's hard on your system. This is a young man who wants to accomplish things we can't even imagine over the next decade. You shouldn't be doing this for that long, so maybe he'll never will. Maybe that featherweight title will be vacated.
We talk about Conor McGregor, his teammate at SBG. Gunnar Nelson has his next assignment, the surging Albert Tumenov. We know that Gunnar Nelson is whiz on the ground. I think he's very underrated in the stand-up department because he does have that karate background. Tumenov will be headhunting in this fight. Do you expect Gunnar Nelson to engage him in the stand-up department? I think he's going to have to, or to say, you know what, I've already had a couple of losses over the last year or so. We need to get this victory over this young Russian.
You know, that's a very good question. Against Damian Maia, the game was, we can't be afraid to go to the ground with him. And then he went to the ground with him, and it went poorly. He just didn't express himself. He wasn't fluid that night. He wasn't free. Is Damian Maia the best jiu-jitsu guy in the world? Yeah. But even with that, there are moments you can get free or moments that could have gone different if he performed perfectly. Does he go and repeat that and say, I can't stand with Tumenov? I don't think he will say that. I think he'll allow the fight to go where it goes, and when the opportunity comes to go to the ground, he'll take it.
The preview show, we're going to get you set for all the action that goes down at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Tune into FN at 7 p.m. as we have a 1-hour preview show taking you through all the mixed martial arts action, including the bantamweight title fight between Holly Holm and Miesha Tate, and of course the 170-pound main event between Conor McGregor and Nathan Diaz.